Hey everyone, I was trying out MetaHuman recently and I wanted to create a simple portrait of a character to showcase how realistic a MetaHuman could look if your art director shot properly. So for starter, in this quick tutorial, I'm going to show you a few simple steps to light up your character for cinematics as well as games. And by the end of this video, you'll have the knowledge to create something like this. Now before we continue, if you're really enthusiastic about lighting and visual effects that goes in CG, I'd highly recommend you go to this website by Chris Bergeon, who goes over all the ingredients of good cinematography. That can be lighting, color management, or design principles. Highly recommended if you're in that path and want to develop yourself in the lighting department or maybe color management or anything that can be added in a CG or in a game development pipeline. Now let's get back to the video. So here I'm inside of Unreal Engine and I have created a simple pose for our character using the control rig and the sequencer. Now here is a cool trick that you might not have known before, is that if you're in the camera cut and you can't get outside of the camera view, it's as simple as just going to this and uncheck allow cinematic control. And here you can see you can come out of the sequencer and move ahead freely. And also you can set the field of view to 90, which is set by default in Unreal Engine. And here you can see I have simply added a few keyframes around our character, and if I click on our character, you can see I have added it to the sequencer, and using the control rig I have created this simple pose, nothing special about it. So now let's get back to the sequencer. So I'll be enabling allow cinematic control and just get back here. So here I have named all the lights on my outliner, and first thing before we get started with lighting is to head over to the edit and then to the project settings and simply search hardware ray tracing. And we want both of these options checked. So support hardware ray tracing and use hardware ray tracing when available. And for this specific case of our lighting, I'll be heading down over and see that we have global illumination and reflection set to lumen. You can also set it to standalone ray tracing, which mind you will not be available if you're using Unreal 5.4 or anything beyond that. So, and there is a substantial difference in the looks if you are using lumen or you are using standalone ray tracing. So you have to choose between whichever suits your needs. Now with all of these out of the way, let's turn off all of our lights and go over each of them, starting with our key light. So key light is the primary source of our lighting scenario, and the key features of a key light is the primary highlights and the sharper shadows that gives the form and shape to our actor. And having it placed in a way that gives us the idea of the light direction from where it is coming from is always a great plus point. So we do it with a rec light, and in most cases for product rendering or character lighting, an area light or a rec light is the best case you can choose from all the lights that you are given in the option. So in Unreal itself, if you go to the lighting tab, you can see there are lots of options like directional light, point light, spotlight, rec light and skylight. And out of all this, the rec light is the best case you can choose to light your character or your product. And then if I click on our key light and if I just come out of our sequencer, you can see that I have placed it in a suitable position that has given us quite a bit of an idea of where the light is coming from, its direction. So here, as you can see, our light is kind of longer than and its width is quite a bit smaller compared to its height, and the reason being is that we want the sharp shadows with our character's wrinkles and its face contours and all this. So let's just get back to our character in the sequencer. So, and if I just click our key light and go to our details panel, you can see that everything is just normal as it is, and I haven't used any special magic here, but you can enhance the look of your character, and this is an important thing if you can afford it, is to enable radius shadows. And if I just enable it, just look at our character. You can see that it's a substantial change in our looks, and the shadows have become quite a bit natural in the fall off, in its natural flow of lighting around the wrinkles, around the eyebrows or the temples. And also you can see how the light just curves around the chin of our character. So if I just disable it, it is how it was earlier, and now when I enable it, you can see the light fall off is quite a bit natural. You can also enable deep shadows. So deep shadows basically cast shadows from the hair strand. So it's a bit costlier compared to when it is disabled, but for cinematic purpose it's totally fine. In certain cases, you can also enable transmission, which add the surface scattering of our character, but in Unreal it feels quite a bit overpowered. So by default I have set it to off. Now with her key light done, if you look at the shadow region of our character, it's like quite darker here, and you can't clearly have the definition of the face visible. So for that we need a fill light. So as soon as I added the fill light, you can see that there is a beautiful definition on the left side of our face, her cheeks, and also around her shoulders. So although we are not countering against the shadows that is coming from our key light, we still have a bit of definition. That's the purpose of a fill light, to leave the shadows while not countering the shadows of our key light or the main light source of our scene. So if I just click on a fill light and check the settings, it's all same all the while, like the deep shadows. And if I just disable the deep shadows, you can see that the left side of our face kind of become flat because there is no shadow patterns falling. And as soon as I enable deep shadows, you can see there are some beautiful shadow patterns falling on our face, and we get a bit of shadow play to actually show off in our character. And if I just disable later shadows, there's not much difference, but the lighting kinds of fades out a bit on our face. With that enabled, we can have a bit of more definition. And if I just come out of the sequencer and come out of the game mode, you can see the fill light is a huge light, and the reason being that we want softer shadows. If I just make the light smaller, if I just go here and maybe make the light smaller, like let's say 10, you can see that around her chest region and around her face kind of become a bit sharper here. You can see that around her chest region the shadow is kind of harsh here, I would say. So to accentuate for that, I can just make the light bigger as it was earlier. So here you can see it kinds of become blended and diffuse around our character while keeping the diffuse lighting intact. Now with fill light and key light finally in place, we can see in the screen that our character's hair is kind of indistinguishable in itself and as well as from its background. So you can see that this part is clearly black and the background is kind of flat as well. So we want something to actually accentuate our character from our background. So for that we introduce the rim light. So our first rim light falls on the left side and kind of on the top of our hair. And the rim light basically, as the name suggests, rim light will accentuate the rim or the contours of our character to maybe give it a bit of more form, shapes, or maybe to accentuate the edges of our character or the object from the background, which basically adds depth between our character and the background. So here in our rim light, if I just scroll down here, you can see that I have all the settings as usual enabled, like the deep shadows and the radius shadows. And here in this case, the deep shadows are particularly important because if I just disable it here, you can see that the light just bleeds into our character's forehead, and which is just clearly looks weird. So if I just enable it, you can see that there is a beautiful fall of our light. And if I just go into the viewport and come out of the game mode, you can see that the light is quite small compared to other lights like the key light or the fill light, because I want the highlights to be quite sharper and the shadows to be quite harsh. So if I just enable our second rim light, it will be like a similar shape and orientation, and it will highlight the front of our character around the forehead and the hair present in there. And for the third rim light, it will just accentuate the left side of our character in around our hair. And because our camera is oriented in that direction, it will just help us create a beautiful fall off around our hair. And here as well, if I just disable deep shadows, you can see that light just penetrates through our hair into the left side of our neck and around our face. And if I just enable it, you'll just see there is a beautiful depth in the shadows. So the rim light basically is used to accentuate the edges, to add the details around the contrast, to have that shapes and the forms of our character or the object that we are lighting, and it will basically help us from distinguishing our actor from the background. With the knowledge of all the lights that we basically use in a character setup, you can pretty much go with this setup and render any form of character and even do products as well. But I would say that for products you still have to add a few more lights according to your needs, but for characters this is pretty much it for basic character rendering. Although you always have the option to add more lights and accentuate more details and do all sort of crazy stuff. Now if you're new to this channel, subscribing the channel greatly helps. And if you're already a subscriber, liking and sharing the videos greatly help. And with all that said, I'll see you in the next video.